What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the first of 4 year-end lists that I'll be doing on this channel. Very last minute, I may add, but I promise they will be out before 2018. First, if you want to know my top 10 hip-hop albums of 2017, that is actually an article on my blog that's been out for like a week now. So I'll link that down in the description. Now, in the past, I've refused to do a worst albums list because to me, it is just such a horribly masochistic process to like sit yourself down and listen and re-listen over and over again to all these terrible albums in an effort to like somehow determine the order in which they're terrible. It was just never something that I was interested in doing. But at the same time, I have to reconcile that with, well, human nature. Because the reality is, even if you are a reasonably self-confident, well-integrated person, it's still really fun to hate on things. There's still always going to be that rush of narcissistic, completely synthetic self-satisfaction that we get from just saying something sucks. So I'm going to talk about some shit that sucked this year. In particular, 10 albums in just the order that I thought of them, because I'm not about to try to relive them and rank them. That would just be fucking torture. First though, 2 albums that I've chosen to keep out of this conversation just out of respect. The first one is Linkin Park's One More Light, which of course 2 months after it came out, frontman Chester Bennington committed suicide. And obviously outside of his friends and family, this was a death this year that was really tough on a lot of people. Just to see someone that you looked up to or someone that you admired check out in such a sudden, confusing, kind of unexplainable way. For my generation especially, it had to be one of the absolute low points of 2017 because it hit so close to home. Like lots of people die every day and lots of celebrities die in the span of a year. But someone like Chester was such a huge part of our collective childhoods. Like if you were born between the years 1984 and like 1996, this tragedy likely affected you in some way. And it just feels wrong to bash the album at this point in time. And the other one, I really hated Logic's new record, Everybody. But just the fact that, especially in light of the whole Chester situation, the fact that the lead single from this record supposedly increased the volume of calls to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and at the very least did a lot to just keep mental health issues in the collective consciousness, that's all really positive. And even though I hated the record, it's done enough good to get it passed for me. But yeah, other than those 2, everything's in play. And believe me, I had a lot of material to choose from. So you know what, before we get into the actual top 10, let's do a few honorable mentions to just kind of get me warmed up here. So for completely wasting my time and taking months, if not years, off of my life, I would like to thank the following albums: Plateau o Plomo, Fat Joe and Remy Ma, Crooked Teeth by Papa Roach, The Prophets of Rage self-titled record. I mean, how tragic was that to see something so boring come out of these rap and rock legends. Beautiful Trauma by Pink, Red Pill Blues by Maroon 5, I reviewed that one. Younger Now by Miley Cyrus. I mean, at this point, just go back to being ratchet. It was at least a little bit more interesting. No Shame by Hobson, Evolve by Imagine Dragons, and of course, I have to shout out Reputation by Taylor Swift, which is a record that at seemingly every turn uses these cheap, shameless, just classless invocations of sexuality to desperately try to spice up these otherwise half-assed, just manufactured pop songs that are gonna sound stale in like 6 months. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. All of you, even though you don't get top 10 mention, played a pivotal, unique role in making 2017 significantly less enjoyable than it could have been. So thanks for that. And it's time to get to the real culprits here now. Top 10 worst albums of the year. Again, no particular order. I thought of them, I wrote them down, I washed my hands of the whole thing, and that was the end of it. So the first and most obvious one that just needs to be said is that Suicide Silence self-titled record, which I did review if you need more elaboration. You know, I'm all about bands evolving and trying new things and going commercial. I really don't care if the sound is commercial or not, but what makes this catastrophic failure of a nu metal attempt even worse is frontman Eddie Hermita's completely disrespectful and immature response to the backlash that this album received. According to Eddie Hermita, if you don't like this record, you're stupid, it's over your head, you're clearly tone deaf because obviously he's completely in key the whole time. And you know what? You should just go listen to sellout bands like Black Dahlia Murder and Cannibal Corpse, who are just too scared to try anything new. Because after all, blatantly trying to recreate one of the most commercially viable metal subgenres of all time, there's nothing sellout about that. That's one of the most courageous, least sellout things you can possibly do. You know, this record bummed me out because I wanted to be that hipster who liked it, but I ended up hating it as much, or not more, than all the metalheads and all the Suicide Silence fans that hated it. My second pick is the debut album from the Chainsmokers, Memories Do Not Open. Not exactly a controversial opinion to hate this record, but still, I found it to be such an insulting listen, because the whole time I'm listening, I'm just like, do the Chainsmokers really think that people who listen to music are this dumb? It felt a little insulting to me. You know what, to be fair, maybe they are that dumb and I'm just giving people way too much credit. But I just find it hard to imagine who could enjoy these cheap, watered-down little kiddie EDM drops that are in these songs, and the lyrics that are just straight out of a 12-year-old's diary. I'm telling you, this record spells trouble because it foreshadows the very vapid place that EDM could end up if people like this shit and shit like this is successful. Next, we got All That Remains with Madness. I loved these guys from 2006 to 2010, but this new record is a culmination of now 7 years straight of just constant disappointment. And on this one, they finally did what they've been threatening to do for a while, which is just shamelessly pander to a radio rock audience. And the result is barely listenable at times. In particular, the ballads on this album, some of the worst music of the entire year. Back to the EDM trash pile for a minute, we got Kygo's second record, Kids in Love. Things I said about the Chainsmokers earlier, they kind of apply here too, except the difference is that Kygo's fall from grace is a much further one, because at one point, this guy was like the darling of tropical house music. This record, it barely even qualifies as dance music. It's really just a bunch of bland pop songs with like a half drop every now and then. It's heartbreaking to see, and you know what, I partially blame Sony, because I have the suspicion that the major label thing has something to do with this. Because EDM, along with hip hop and obviously pop music, is one of the last forms of music that's just really commercially viable on a big level. Chainsmokers have proven that. Marshmello is proving that. Avicii and Calvin Harris before them. And I think as long as this shit can reach top 40, we're gonna get a lot more watered down music like this Kygo record. It bums me out, but it is what it is. Another failure from the world of dance music was Cascade's Christmas album. Look, I've been a fan of Cascade for years and I was very intrigued, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I hope that someday someone will come through with a really great, high-profile EDM Christmas album. I would eat it up just as much as the next guy, but this ain't it. Don't believe me? Just listen to the butchered, barely recognizable renditions of like Deck the Halls and Silent Night. I would rather listen to Wham for the millionth time, and that's saying a lot. Judas by Fozzy, Chris Jericho's rock/metal band. Much like All That Remains, they went the radio rock route, and you know what? It turned out even worse for them, if you ask me. In particular, there's this one song on here called 3 Days in Jail, where the band attempt an honest-to-God revival of nu metal. And like, not the interesting kind of artsy nu metal that Suicide Silence was trying to bring back. I mean like nu metal. Like rapping and all. I listen to shit like this, and I'm just like, how does one person in this whole studio session not like speak up and veto something like this? Fergie, Double Duchess. You know, I was kind of psyched for Fergie's little comeback here, because you know what, there are still some jams from that first Duchess record 10 years ago that I can still get down with. But unfortunately, this time around, it feels a lot more calculated and very trend hoppy. Like in this track list, she'll go from like tropical house to the DJ Mustard sound to whatever fuck that obnoxious MILF song is. And worst of all, she's trying to rap all over this record. And it works about as well as when Iggy Azalea tries to rap all over a record. So take that as you will. One thing I really didn't get this year was the 21 Savage hype. I thought Issa album was so boring. This guy is supposed to be this scary street dude, but instead of like keeping me engrossed in his violent narratives like all my favorite street rappers do, he really just puts me to sleep with his nauseatingly dull delivery and just his clumsy ass rhymes. I do not get the fascination with this guy. This next one, and I know we're not doing rankings here, but if we were, this is top 3 without a doubt. Machine Gun Kelly with Bloom. This is some of the worst whitewashed pop rap garbage that you'll ever hear. This shit makes like G-Eazy and Hoodie Allen look like Big Pun and Pharoah Monch by comparison. MGK on this record just throws a bunch of by-the-numbers inspirational anthems at you, and even at one point, worst of all, He tries to like front his own little synthetic pop punk band on the song Let You Go. Not to mention this record's singles, like At My Best, which is one of the aforementioned inspirational songs, or Bad Things with Camila Cabello. If this record already had a spot on the list, those two singles alone guarantee it a top slot contention. You know what? I think Bad Things was my worst favorite song of the year. I think I just decided that on the spot. That had to be it. And the last record that I'm gonna shit on before getting on with the much more fun positive lists, XXXTentacion 17. And not just cause it ended up being revealed that this dude was like horribly abusive to women in his personal life, but because the record itself is this completely unlistenable, nihilistic mope fest that is somehow trying to present itself as artsy and deep. This record is like if Kid Cudi was 10 times angrier and had zero talent. Out of all the fads that 2017 brought us, the XXXTentacion obsession, that was my least favorite. Like, I don't even know how to start a conversation with somebody who likes this album. Like, to each his own, but when I know that you like this album, it's just like, where do we go from there? Like, what do I say next? And just like that, it's out of my system. You know, talking about all these horrible albums, it was kind of cathartic, but I really didn't enjoy it at all, actually. It just made me kind of sad and like a little bit bummed. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna do one of these again. So if I don't, I hope you enjoyed the one and only installment of Worst Albums of the Year, and I will see you real soon for the fun lists, the list that I'm actually looking forward to doing. 10 songs that define the year, top 10 metal albums, top 10 everything else albums. I've been working so hard on them, and I can't wait to share them with you. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.